Welcome, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you to our online workshop. Bullying is a serious issue affecting 1 in 3 students worldwide. And so I'd like to introduce the team that came together from the different sectors of our community to stand together against bullying. And so I'd like to welcome Diane. Diane is a licensed educational psychologist and a values education authority and a meditator. She's the co-creator of Living Values, a global values education initiative. She's authored over 22 resource books on values education, and she has definitely circled the globe numerous times to hold seminars in living values education, personal development in over 30 countries. She has also facilitated values education seminars for the UNESCO, for street children agencies, educators and parent facilitators at universities, at schools, and even at refugee camps. So I want to say, Diane, all the way from Seal Beach, welcome to our session today. Great to have you on board. Diane, if you could unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Shimona. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
Great, fantastic. Amina, another of our panelists. Amina is a life orientation educator at the Lincoln Heights Secondary School in Newcastle. So welcome, Amina. I absolutely enjoyed the video clip that we watched right now. So much of effort must have gone into it. So I want to say thank you to Lincoln Heights and welcome, Amina.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for having me.
Great. I'd like now to introduce you to Simona Pillay. Simona is a lecturer in marketing at the University of Johannesburg, and she's currently studying towards her, her PhD. So welcome, Simona. Great to have you on board.
Thank you, Mona. I'm looking forward to the session today.
Wonderful. And over now to Gwen. Gwen is a school principal of a high school in Cape Town, and he works with a really dynamic staff, and explores the different ways of thinking and challenging and facilitating new ways of thinking about education, and has really worked so beautifully with the young students and the school community surrounding him. So special welcome to Gwen.
Thank you for having me, Mona. Thank you. Thank you all.
Lovely. Divendri, welcome, Divendri. Divendri is a meditation teacher with the Brahma Kumaris and also an occupational therapist. She conducts a lot of psychosocial rehabilitation, for adults and adolescents as well. And she's based in Durban. So Divendri, welcome. Unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, and thank you very much.
Great. And our final presenter is a young actress from Durban, Leswi Ndumo, and she plays a wonderful little actress role in Durban Gen, and it is a series on SABC, and she believes that people should never be afraid to dream big, to follow their dreams, and to speak only what they want to achieve in their life. So a special welcome to Leswi as well. Yeah. So we're going to start off with Leswi sharing a story for us. And I'm going to now move on to our story. minute. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, Leslie Ndomo will share a story with us. And with regards to the story that she will be sharing with us, this story is about a typical character that we can all identify with. And the character's name is Zandile, and we can, fondly refer to her as Zandi. And the context of the story, which we can all identify with, is her as an auditor in a top auditing company in South Africa. And this is a typical example of almost every 1 in 5 South Africans. And definitely, as we listen to her present this story, you will find that you can identify with the different types of bullying that we as individuals experience in our day-to-day life. Over to Lizzie.
My name is Lizzie Ndomo. I am a grade 6 learner at Dr. Makin Mystery Primary School in Durban. I'm now going to tell you a story about bullying, so buckle up and listen very carefully. Zandile is a 30-year-old lady who worked at a top auditing company in South Africa. This is her story. Zandile grew up with her parents and older brother. She shared a very close relationship with her brother and always confided in him. Zandile's mother was a very strict woman who would get angry all the time. She would often shout, fight, and get violent with their father. She even blamed her children for her anger and frustration. Over time, Zandile felt her mother drifting apart from their family. She bravely confronted her mother, who very disappointedly said that she would be better off without them. Sadly, her mother left them all alone. Zandile, only 17, felt lost, afraid, confused, and was deeply hurt. Zandile started university at the age of 18 and made many friends. Those friends, however, teased, mocked, and laughed at her. They called her nicknames and posted embarrassing photos of her on social media. This was so humiliating. She felt isolated, but did not want to leave her group of friends for the fear of being alone. Eventually, Zandile graduated with a degree in auditing and was the top achiever in her class. At the age of 25, she started her first job as an intern at a major auditing firm. She was extremely excited to start her first day. However, during the first week at work, she felt excluded from her team because she heard 2 team members make snide remarks about her skin color and her background. Zandile was the top intern in her team. She enthusiastically applied for the promotion post at her work. In the week preceding the interview, Zandile overheard team members spreading nasty rumors about her. Because of these rumors, her manager put her on an intensive performance management plan. He too constantly criticized her work. Over time, Zandile became despondent and lost interest in performing at her best. She started thinking very negatively about herself. She became judgmental and critical of everything she did. This attitude impacted on her mental, emotional, and physical life, which led to her downfall. The end. Thank you. I trust that you enjoyed this story. God bless you all. I love you. Peace. my name.
Thank you, Lizzie. That was absolutely beautifully presented. She definitely is an upstander in the cause of preventing bullying, especially in schools. Yeah. We have all been exposed to so much on media of what bullying is. Yeah. And so I'm going to ask Simona to please share a little bit on your take of what bullying is and how do you know if you are a bully and to recognize that within yourself. Okay, so over to Simona.
Thank you, Mona. So the formal definition of bullying is a deliberate misuse of power through repeated verbal, physical, and social behavior that intends to cause harm to someone else. There are various types of bullying, which I'm going to discuss now, and if we can just relate it back to the story as well. The first and most obvious type of bullying is physical bullying. And this we can trace back to the story where Zandile's mother used to get violent with her father, as well as Zandile and her brother. There's also verbal bullying, which is using comments that demean and belittle others. So Zandile's mother was guilty of this, and some of her colleagues at work had also used verbal bullying against her. Another interesting type of bullying is relational bullying, and this is based on the power dynamics in a relationship where one party feels that they are in more authority and can exert more power over the other. So this would be Zandile's colleagues that are spreading rumors about her at work, and she feels ostracized from the group. There's also cyberbullying, which we are going to get into a bit later in the presentation, but this could be like Zandile's friends at university who had posted embarrassing pictures about her. There's also workplace bullying, which is now becoming quite common amongst adults. And this is when managers at work use unjust criticism, they put you on excessive performance monitoring, they put you down and they don't integrate your ideas into their strategies. And then another type of bullying, which I don't think is commonly spoken about, but I think many people undergo, is self-bullying. And sometimes this is actually a side effect of all the other bullying that takes place. So self-bullying is when you pressurize, criticize, and judge yourself quite harshly. And this often leads to sabotaging yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. So now I'm going to move on to how do I know if I'm being bullied? And I think a lot of people are unaware and sometimes they just feel like others are being mean to them and not necessarily feel like they are being bullied. But the questions on screen should give you some sort of indication. And I think it's a good reflection point if you are feeling these things and you're not sure if you are being bullied. So in essence, if you think that you are being intimidated, if you feel isolated, if you are afraid to go to places or interact with certain people, if you experience anxiety or any form of depression, then you know it's a sign of bullying. There are also some emotions associated with bullying that victims of bullying experience quite often. And this could be fear, it could be anger, low self-confidence and low self-esteem, humiliation, feeling quite hopeless, and also prolonged feelings of sadness. So as the person being bullied, you may very often feel weak and you often take on a victim mindset. But this is actually a dangerous mindset to take on. Bullies target people with low self-confidence and low self-esteem. And this is actually a signal that you need to pick up on. Sometimes if we don't, or if we are not aware that we have low self-confidence and low self-esteem, we carry on in this repeated cycle, and often we constantly attract bullies into our lives, depending on the type of relationships we form. I'd now like to move on to the other side of the spectrum, where we ask ourselves, am I a bully, and how do I recognize if I am a bully? So there are various characteristics and behavioral traits commonly present in bullies. The list is not exhaustive, and it doesn't mean that if you have one or two of these characteristics that you are a bully, but I think just some red flags that parents and teachers can also look out for is impulsiveness, anger issues, lack of empathy and sympathy, little respect for authority, and feeling insecure. Now, what I want to point out is that no one is born a bully, that it is an acquired behavioral trait. And I think we're very quick to judge the bully, but in actual fact, bullying is the outcome of some sort of emotional trauma that the child or the adult has undergone previously in their lives. And this trauma creates an insecurity within them that depletes their self-confidence and self-esteem. So bullies in actual fact share that same characteristic with their victims. And because they want to make themselves feel better, they pick on the insecurities of those people with low self-esteem. So bullies often experience feelings of vengefulness, anger, self-pity, and indifference. I think it's important that we reflect on all the feelings and characteristics linked to either being a victim of the bully or being the bully themselves. In many cases, people are unaware that bullying is taking place around them. And when bullying goes unnoticed, it really does impact people into their adulthood and can have a detrimental effect on the soul. And we will be discussing some methods to overcome bullying a bit later on in the presentation. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you so much, Simona. That was so beautifully shared. We're moving on now to a very, very important part of bullying. And I'd like now to ask a very important question to Amina. Being a senior phase educator at a secondary school, you've seen the increase of bullying. So I would like to ask for you to share with us what are some of the signs as an educator you could look out for to identify bullying in your classroom especially. So let's move on. I'm going to now ask Amina to share with us.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for that. Yes, we have definitely seen an increase in bullying. I've been in the last 10 years, but I've definitely seen an increase. And it's definitely been through cyberbullying. A lot of our learners now are getting involved in social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, and they find this as a means to bully the person and be behind the scene. A lot of them don't want to take the blame for it, but they want to bully. And some of the signs that teachers can actually take into consideration is that you get your general or your normal physical bullying, which everybody does notice. But we do need to also realize that boys generally are the ones who get into this physical altercation, but not only are they the ones that are bullied, but also our girls get bullied a lot. And generally, this is your emotional bullying that takes place. Also, teachers can take note of anger outbursts, like Simona had mentioned previously. A lot of learners, when they want to bully, they have a lot of anger in them. They stand up to authority, like Simona said previously. So they are very good at control. They want to be in control. They generally do tend to manipulate a lot of those that are in their so-called clique, and they want things to be done according to the way they want things to be done. Teachers can also take note of those who are really well-mannered all the time. Now, I'm not saying every child that's well-mannered in your class is a bully, but learners that are generally very well-mannered and they show that they are good, when they are left to their own devices, they tend to exclude others in the group. If they're not doing what they want or do it according to how they do it, then they generally exclude others. And it's definitely a form of bullying. And as the little clip that we saw, Zandi definitely experienced exclusion. Also, learners, like we said, tend to stand up to us. If they do, you must know that they are not scared. They want to show their position. They want to show they are the one in charge. They're not afraid of anybody. And also you could pay attention to a lot of those kids who like to bring a lot of drama to themselves or around them. You know, they create that drama. They want the attention. They like, and they generally tend to spread a lot of gossip about other learners in the class, or those that don't conform to the way they do things. You know, they generally spread these rumors and create a lot of drama around them. So these are some of the signs that teachers can take note of in their classroom and be aware of. Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amina. So beautifully shared. Yes, and as I listened to you speak, I remembered this lovely, catchy phrase of think before you post, especially with cyberbullying. You really have to be aware of everything before you post anything on any platform of social media. Thank you, Amina.
Thanks, ma'am.
All right, so I'm now going to call on Gwen. Gwen, can you share with us what teachers can do to address bullying?
Thank you, Mona. I think the first concern is that teachers must be aware of their own actions when they are confronted with opinions that are different to theirs. So in essence, teachers can address bullying by not being bullies themselves. To be cautious of insulting, humiliating, or hurting children in class. Don't criticize them in front of others. Don't be an example of somebody who uses hurting tactics to control a class or to control another person, because you set the example. You are being role modeled as a teacher by the learners who see how you manage things. And if you are not in control of a class, it's okay, as long as you don't become mean, because in some sense you will then facilitate a process where meanness controls the class. And that's what bullies do. Bullies control others that are of a lesser social standing or in a lesser frame of reference, by controlling them, by being mean to them. So don't be a bully. That is the first thing that teachers need to do. Secondly, teachers need to show or role model how they themselves deal with conflict, deal with a type of disorder, and if they at all times can be kind, respectful to learners, then they are role modeling. They are teaching by example. And I think that is the most important thing that we as teachers are doing in place of a parent. We are here to show children how, and we raise children not just through our subjects. Our subjects are just our reason for gathering, but the way we behave and the way we conduct ourselves is the most important part of avoiding that children learn to become bullies. We need to show a better way that works, and we have to be persistent in the way that we choose to address conflict or differences of opinion, or how we step up to support anybody whom we think is being dismissed or hurt. That is what we as teachers do. We need to show children how to be. And I think that's the most important part that teachers need to play. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Gwen. So beautifully shared. Lovely. I'm now going to hand you over to Diane. Diane, beautiful that you could join us today, and very, very important, you know, your years and years of experience in the education sector. The question that I would like to ask of you today is, what can parents do so that their children can share about their bullying? And the second question that I want you to take on is the aspect of what can parents do to make sure that they are not raising a bully? So I'd like now to hand you over to Diane.
Thank you, Mona. Very interesting questions. Sadly, only 1 out of every 6 children that is being bullied actually shares that with their parents. But why is that? You know, what's happening? How come there's so few that share with their parents? And so something to look at is, how am I interacting with my child? You know, when my child tells me something, do I get upset on their behalf? Do I get upset at them? Do I blame them? How come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? And so very often children don't share that they're being bullied because of the responses of the parents. And so I would like to encourage parents to learn to listen, to provide a safe space, a nurturing space, a sacred space, to have more family time, to have more us time with their children, where they get their full attention, and to communicate with them, even if it's silently, even if it's taking a walk together, cooking together, doing something together, but giving them your full attention, at least a little bit of time every day. This is invaluable. And when we as parents listen, children talk. If we don't listen, if we are just reacting, they don't share. In terms of not creating a bully, I think that's a great question. And there's so many ways to not create a bully. First, think about what you want for your children. And if you want them to be kind and compassionate and loving and assertive, then help them do that. One of the first things we can do is look at the choices we make in terms of what they're exposed to. Do we choose books that are about peace and kindness and courage, where the heroine or the hero is someone who is kind, is sweet, is honest, has compassion, helps others? So choose uplifting things, humanizing things for children, be it books when they're little or movies, video games as they get older. Help them know that that's what's valued. Live those values yourself. Model the values of kindness, of peace. Another whole thing is these parenting skills of listening. When I can listen, listening is like an escalator downward when children are angry. And when we listen, their anger could go into their hurt, into their fear, into their well-being. And by listening, we help them understand their emotions. And then we can gently help them learn to manage their emotions. Another way to help prevent a bully is to listen to them, to be aware of what they're saying about their friends, if they're having problems with friends or with other siblings. Teach them conflict resolution. Teach them communication. Help them be assertive. Help them say no hitting, even when they're 2 and 3, when others are being inappropriate. There's so many things we can do. I wrote a parenting book, and it's free on Amazon in ebooks. And there's a whole chapter, like 30 pages, for parents to deal with bullying and social media. Good wishes to you all.
Thank you so much, Diane. So beautifully shared. Wow. You know, parents, you could just take one aspect of what she shared and practically in your life, you know, use it so that you can work better with your child, empower your child, and be that role model. It will make such a difference in their lives. Yeah. Thank you so much, Diane. And now I'm going to go back to Gwen. Yeah. As a principal, one is often asked to address bullying incidents as part of your daily chores, right? Your interest in the concept of bullying stems from that shared vision to facilitate a school and a community environment that is peaceful and trusting and respectful towards yourself and to others. Yeah. So tolerance and consideration. I would like you to share with us, how do you handle this on a daily basis?
Thank you, Mona. I think that some of the challenges we face is that bullies sometimes don't realize that their behavior is bullying. And I generally tend to deal with any type of conflict as a level of bullying. Just the other day, I said to a child, but I think by being late with your teacher, by talking in class, you're actually bullying your teacher. She said, no, I'm not doing that. I said, but you're undermining your teacher. You are hurting your teacher. Somebody who's being kind to you, you're disenfranchising the teacher. And the teacher said, and the child said, I didn't really realize that. I think that bullying has got such a wide connotation. The biggest part of bullying is that, firstly, bullies do not think that they're bullying. Bullies think that they're being assertive. Bullies think that they are just getting their way, just poking fun. We're just having fun. We're standing up for our rights. And they have a tendency to not have a sense of awareness of how their friend or another person feels. And when we look at bullying at my school, I try to, of course, support the person, the supposed victim. That's important to say, this is how you feel. And I particularly point to my chest and your heart. How did it feel here? It's not the punch, it's the humiliation of being overpowered that hurts the victim. It's not the comedy that is made, it is how I have been made to feel by the fun that's being poked at me. And I often try and tend to move towards how do we feel, and then I would ask the perpetrator, how do you feel when that person feels like that? No, it was not only a joke, it doesn't have to be serious. And then I'll ask the perpetrator, how do you feel when somebody makes you feel as the victim has described? And it's almost like a moment of, I'm sorry. And I tend to accept that sorry as real, always. It is real. And yes, I've had a number of characters who come, they repeat bully category kind of visitors to my office. And we keep on talking about that. Because the purpose of it is not to say, I will be a bigger bully than you, I will do this and I will do that. The purpose is to say, why don't you think about it? Why don't you find a better way in which you can be a friend? Who are you really? How are you really? And bullies don't always think about that, because bullies have only learned one way of dealing with it. They've become popular through the fun that they poke. They've become popular and respected because of the threat that they carry with them, that they may hurt somebody. They've become acknowledged and seen because of their conduct. They even get attention from teachers because of their conduct. And now we start saying, but I want to see you more, but I want to see you in a more beautiful light. And challenge and call our children out to be the better person. The big challenge I often find is that the victim says, I don't want to be friends with him or her anymore. And I say, that's fine, I can respect that. But can you forgive them? Because I think they didn't realize what they were doing. Can you forgive them? Because they kind of like didn't know what the implication is. They didn't realize that you would be hurt in this particular manner. And that moment is, sometimes it works and goes well, or sometimes the victim just says, no, I don't want to be friends. But sometimes they say, okay, sir, I understand. I know that you didn't understand. And when that conversation starts, you are moving from victimhood to say, oh, I understand. You didn't mean it that way. And they start having some kind of sense of integrity that, yes, I was humiliated. Yes, I was feeling sad, but I now have power to forgive. And forgiveness is a level of power that we want our children to gain, even when somebody is mean. But it doesn't mean that they have to accept the behavior. It's beautiful that children say, this is how I feel. And the one thing that's very important for me is children need to tell me how they feel. And you've had parents that I think sometimes role model behaviors that are not okay. And sometimes children are desperate to survive, and they practice bullying strategies to survive. And that's really what we do. We try and meet with both the victim and the perpetrator. And I tend to spend a little bit more time with the perpetrator because they are going to grow up too. And we want to facilitate a different way of thinking. Thanks, Mona.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gwen. So beautifully shared. Yes, just understanding one word from a teacher or a peer will be able to stop bullying within 10 seconds. And yes, yeah, You can stop it. We all can make that difference to the lives of our children. Lovely. I'm now going to ask Divendri. Hi, Diven. Are you with us?
Yes, hi.
Lovely. Diven, the underlining power dynamics and the psychosocial implications of bullying is something that you deal with on a daily basis. I'd like you to share your views as an occupational therapist on how are these aspects being addressed, with rehab interventions. Can you share and take us a little bit in depth into the power dynamics and the social implications of bullying?
Yes, thank you very much. So like Sabona was saying, bullying definitely can be conceptualized as some sort of abuse or misuse of power. And there's definitely this power dynamic that underlies the bullying triangle, I'd like to call it, because it exists between three parties. So there's the bully, there's the victim, and there's also the bystanders. There's usually always an audience. And each party actually has a personality and a communication style that's usually linked to a specific relationship with power. For example, the bully is seen to have an aggressive communication style with a sense of entitlement and justifies the misuse or the abuse of power. And the victim is seen to have a passive communication style and to some extent, perhaps a little bit of a submissive personality and a tendency to hand over power. And the bystander is seen to have a passive-aggressive communication style and permits the violation of the rights of the other, meaning the victim, in order to divert or to avoid a dominance over themselves. So a little bit of a cowardly sort of dynamic. So in psychosocial rehab, which is very different from counseling, because it's more practical and we focus on the development of life skills and coping strategies in a very practical way. The aim is, of course, to embrace every individual, regardless of whether it's the bully, the victim, or the bystander in the triangle. Each individual definitely is a human being that has potential to move towards a more balanced state. And the starting point is always self-esteem, because in addressing the whole issue of self-esteem on a deep and true level, really getting people to recognize their intrinsic and innate value, separate to external roles and separate to external identification categories. That's the beginning of the journey of coming back to balance when it comes to the power dynamic, because the power dynamic or the misuse of power is usually reliant on an overexertion of external factors, sometimes very much brute external factors. So self-esteem is the starting point, and personal empowerment, where the aim is for an individual to actually gain insight into their own personality, into their own communication style, and even possibly to see how it might have contributed towards the dysfunctional behavior of misusing power or handing over power. And then to try to move that individual towards a state of balance where two things are essential: for the individual to start to really respect themselves enough to have the clarity and confidence to assert their own human rights, but also to be able to respect the rights of the other and to have this motivation to want to honor the human rights of another. And for all of this, assertiveness skills training is the key. And assertiveness, very briefly described, is when an individual is still firm but friendly, and confidently and clearly can give voice to their own thoughts and their own feelings with no hesitation and with no sense of entitlement. So obviously the psychosocial rehab program, focusing on the life skills and coping strategies, gives a person an opportunity to practice this assertiveness with focus on tone of voice, posture, body language, eye contact. And I'm sure if any of you have read up on the practical coping strategies of what to do when faced with the bullying, you'll always see a list where it tells you things like look them in the eye, speak in a firm and a clear tone of voice. And so all of this is relevant, but it's not just, like Simona was saying, it's not just confined to the playground and the corridors in school, because bullying transcends and it pervades and it goes into adulthood, and we see it in organizations and we see it in the workplace as well. And sometimes being assertive in these type of spaces is a little bit complicated, as was mentioned earlier, because your job might be on the line. And, so there's a very tricky balance there, but it's absolutely essential to feel confident enough that I have these skills and I have the capacity to implement them in order to earn my livelihood, but also to create a space, a rightful space for myself in this workplace. There's much more to say, but I think I'll wrap up there. Thanks very much for giving me the chance to share.
Thank you so much, Devendri. So beautifully shared. Yes, we have to be the change. I see a hand that's been raised, but can I ask if we can address your question at the end? We just have an hour together, so I'd like to give quality time to our presenters, and then we will address questions at the end. Yeah. I'm now going to move on to Gwen again. And Gwen, the question that I have for you is, what happens to the bully, the long-term effects of bullying into adulthood? So over to Gwen.
I'm always cautious when you ask me that question, why? But my thinking is that having been in education for a long time, bullies become lawyers and doctors, they become teachers, they become preschool teachers, they become presidents, and they become business tycoons, they become employees, they become the people that clean our streets. They grow up, but most of all, they become mommies and daddies. They become adults who deal with conflict in a manner by either manipulating or hurting or have an insensitivity to the emotions of others. And when they're in a scenario where they need to control an environment, they tend to revert back to how they can control. Now, I'm saying this about bullies. Bullies grow up to be parents, to be leaders in our community, or mentors for our children, and they become heroes. And their ways in which they do things tend to have a tinge of insensitivity to the humanity of others. I also want to speak about victims of bullying. Victims of bullying become adults too. They also go into positions of power. They also come into positions of responsibility. And the only way in which they can control is what they learned through their own experience of being violated and bullied. And they think that that is how they can gain control of the scenario. When the colonizers came to South Africa and the Cape, they were bullies when they met with the Khoisan. And to me, that is, who would you send to go conquer other people? And in companies and in business, who do we send to go conquer? It's almost as if our economy depends on bullies to take us forward, to hurt other people. And it's really important that we start understanding that bullies grow up. And it is therefore so important that we at school dissolve the bully methodology of getting ahead, both through how we interact with people who are exposed to bullying, or either victims or perpetrators, and by the way we set an example, and that we don't tend to give up on the goodness within ourselves when we strive to set a new example. I'm not claiming to say that I've never been guilty of bullying. I do remember shouting at kids. I do remember telling somebody, but that is unacceptable in front of their peers. I think that is something that we as adults and teachers, we fail out very often, but I don't think we should give up on it. I don't think we should give up on the idea of the consciousness that at some stage you realize you should not be humiliating children in front of other children. I know it's an easy thing to do, but it's so easy to fall back into practices that comes easy, that gives us control and power. And we should be very sensitive about that power that we have, our greatest power is to set an example, to role model the kind of change we want to see in the world. And so that's what happens to bullies. They become us adults, if we ever become adults, of course. And Andre was writing a comment, and he's saying, silent and listen have the same letters. Thank you, Andre. And that's beautiful. Listening to people empowers them, allows them to have feelings. Bullies don't do that. You have to be a very special person to hear others, because you almost have to place yourself at rest and open yourself up to the emotion and feelings of the other person. And that is something that, to me, sometimes that's very hard because you want to get done with the meeting. But it's very important that we try and be better at what we want to role model in our world. And I'm very fortunate to have teachers that are so powerful in that regard. They listen more than they talk, and that's very important. We as schools need to do that. We need to use our ears as communication to facilitate communication rather than our speaking.
Thank you, Gwen. Beautifully said. Yes, bullying is real and it's never okay to bully. Thank you so much for sharing that. Amina, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Amina, the question I have for you is there a favorite bit of advice that you would like to briefly share with parents and learners? So just very quickly, if you can share with us.
Ma'am, I think following Gwen, I would really like to say that kids need to ask for help. That's my advice to them, kids as well as their parents. I know at our school, our principal, Mr. Ardnaker, has this open door policy, whether it be for the learners, whether it be for the parents, or whether it be for the teachers. So I would suggest ask for help, because there are people who are willing to listen. The teachers are willing to listen, and if they can't, in our school, if the teachers don't feel that they can manage, we go beyond in a sense of trying to get further help for the learner. So I would suggest to the learners, ask for help. For parents, life gets at you. We're busy, life gets away with you, and sometimes we don't know what to do. But again, go to school, speak to the principal, speak to the teachers. Let's try this holistic approach, maybe to try and help these learners, whether the bully or the perpetrator. And let's try and, help these learners. So the best advice is to ask for help.
Fantastic. Yes, remember, it only takes one. Thank you so much, Amina, for sharing. I'd like now to move on to Diane. Diane, one of the most important aspects to impact our children is through living values. And the question I'd like for you to share about is the importance and the impact of values, living values, and how we can adopt them into our daily lives and into the lives of our children. So over to Diane.
Thank you, Mona. I've been enjoying the comments, and especially the comments about the feelings of children. And we all just You know, we live in our feelings. And so how are we creating that? And what are we creating? Educators, parents, individuals around the world have immense power. And I think what I'm advocating, what I'm spending my life advocating, is the adoption of values that are dear to our heart. When I do living values education, very often I begin with asking people what 2 values would change the world if everyone lived them. So if you think of a favorite person in your life and how they made a positive difference for you, look at their value. If everyone had that value, would the world be different? And now think of 2 values that if everyone had them, the world would completely change. Your answer may be peace and respect. It may be compassion and honesty. It can be any 2 values, but that would change everything. Everyone has virtues, and we live them sometimes. But a virtue becomes a value when it is lived all the time. When we have values, we're automatically happy. We're automatically less stressed. But what are we creating around us? If there was peace in the world, kindness, compassion, what difference would there be? There was an interesting study in the international journal, in an international journal on bullying in the last year or 2. And in that article, they examined 137 different studies. And what they found is that bullying has not changed much in the last 10 years. Those of us can even see that it's far worse because our suicide rates of children, for example, in the USA, of 11 to 14-year-olds has actually recently and tragically increased. But in these studies, they found that most of the anti-bullying programs are not effective. What is effective is 2 things. One is creating a positive school climate. The second is teaching social and emotional skills. So how do I create this positive social climate? We've talked a little bit about that in terms of the family. So us time with your children, family time, modeling peace, turning off the screens, choosing humanizing, wonderful, fun things, quiet things even to do. But in schools, we do living values education. And with living values education, we first start with helping teachers look inside at the values they want to have, and then developing a skill set so they can create a safe environment for children. When there is a safe, nurturing environment in schools, children learn better. They learn more readily. But in addition, we have many living values activities. And in these activities, what we first do is we help the child open up by reflecting on what they want for a peaceful world, for a better world. So then you have a place to start in teaching them the social and emotional skills that will help them create that. So you teach them to be peaceful. How can they do that? Communication. There's discussion groups to talk about bullying. Have they seen bullying? Have they been a bully? How do they feel when they're bullied? How do they feel as the bullier? And when you've created this safe atmosphere, they can actually talk. And in schools doing living values, there is no bullying. It's beautiful. But the teachers are modeling, they're living their values. But the children become part because you're engaging them in activities to learn about the values. For example, to mind map the effects of peace versus the effects of violence. And then how do they create that in the world? But other things with love, with caring for our earth and for the environment. So yes, to live our values and to teach children the social and emotional skills for creating inclusiveness, belonging. And it's just beautiful to see the atmosphere. There was once a little guy, he was just 4, and he was in a little preschool nearby that has done living values for years. And he was told, his mother was told, that he would never be able to go to a regular school, that he would need a full-time aide because he was so violent. He went into this living values school and he did his normal behavior of bullying and being violent for 2 days. But people reacted completely differently. The kids at 3 and 4 and the teachers. The 3rd day he came into school, he gave up all his violent and bullying behaviors and started to enjoy a healthy, happy childhood. So if you're interested, the Association for Living Values Education International, which does have an associate in South Africa, has recently made the books available online, the values units, free of charge. We've done this so that countries around the world can access the materials because there's such a need. Anyhow, Mona and everyone, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be on the call.
Thank you so much, Diane. So from the heart space. Diane has written numerous books as well. All of these resources are available on the website that you see there, www.livingvalues.net. So you can definitely download the free resources that is available to educators. You know, I'm just thinking about the way forward, and values and Ubuntu together is what we need to create safe schools in South Africa. Yeah. And so once again, I'm thinking about the aspect of the child, right? If your child is being bullied, it is important to address it right away and start to by listening and empathizing with what they are going through, and then, you know, to brainstorm ideas on how best it is to address the situation. But of course, yeah, reporting bullying that occurs at schools is always the best option. But if you want to be sure, right, then your child has to be on board with that decision. I'm going to ask Devendri very quickly to share with us, as an OT, how do you use meditation and how has meditation helped in the healing process of the victim of bullying? Over to Devendri.
There's so many terms for meditation. Meditation is usually associated very much with spirituality, but when incorporating it, in psychosocial rehab, I tend to use terms like relaxation or purposeful reflection. Ultimately, all of it is very similar or exactly the same practice. And I personally think that it's the swing factor when it comes to an individual initially healing, but then going on to empowering themselves. Everything begins with the power of thought. You know, we can be exposed to theory, we can gain a lot of information through training, but there has to be an internal shift, and there has to be space created internally and a motivation and an impetus, so then real change can happen. And I really see the value of the practice of meditation being that tool that actually sort of drives this.
Sorry, Devendri, you've muted yourself.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that I really see meditation as being the tool that sort of drives that process along. And so, you know, creating a space initially just to ground the self, to deeply relax the body, and then in hopefully physical silence and stillness to start to very purposefully and consciously direct thoughts towards this intrinsic beautiful nature that each of us as human beings have, and that Diane was so, you know, sweetly describing, towards this wonderful capacity or potential that we have. I really feel that opens up something internally. You know, it really, really moves us to another level, which is an accumulation of energy, you know, and this energy is what we need in order to be able to practice the life skills and the coping strategies that are needed. In order to be assertive, someone has to have courage, has to have determination. In order to be more compassionate and to stop being aggressive, somebody really needs to start being patient, start being considerate. Theory won't really shift a person enough to get them into that state, but the theory coupled with practices of meditation opens the heart and enables that process to happen. And I hope that we get a chance in today's session to experience some of that as well, Mona.
Yes, that's what we're going to be heading over to. I'd like everyone to sit back, relax for the next few minutes and enjoy the meditation experience. And I hope that this will help with the process of healing. So thank you so much, Devendri. That was so beautifully shared. I'd like now for everyone to sit back and enjoy the meditation experience that we have prepared for you. Oh, there definitely is some technical issue here. So let me see if I can quickly grab that. One moment. Let me call on help from Danielle. If you can see if you can help with the meditation experience. Okay, I think because of our time constraints, we're going to stop there, and definitely you can access the meditation from our website. I just want to confirm the website to you all. You can reach us at Brahmakumari, South Africa, and the website is www.brahmakumaris.org.za, and you can download the guided meditation there. And also we have sent within the chat group a little Google document, a form that we could get your inputs on as to the way forward. So if you could send us your feedback, that would be beautiful. We would appreciate that, absolutely. And then very important, the Values in Education website. Just to note that it's www.livingvalues.net. And these are some of the books that Diane has been instrumental in creating beautiful activities for children. So there's different age categories that you see on the screen present, and a beautiful resource also for parents to help your child dealing with bullies and the social media, and to remember that the ebooks are available free, or it could be available on Amazon.com for your downloads as well. Just to actually remind ourselves that we do have a follow-up program, and it will be on the 1st of June at 6:30. We have a lovely presenter, Nadia Motala. She's been working extensively with values, and I am sure that you will definitely enjoy Nadia's sharings as well. And we truly look forward to each one of you taking maximum benefit from her as well. And hopefully we will get Diane to be part of our regular sessions, depending on the time constraints and whatever feedback we get on the Google form. And very, very important just to remember that the key is to empower your child to take an active role in addressing whatever it is that they are going through, and really for us to restore that sense of power and self-confidence within each and every individual, right? And so it's so important to understand that you are the change, be the change. It's not just telling stories, but we are changing lives. And so thank you so much for attending, for making this quality time, and very, very important, do fill in our questionnaire so that we can then present future programs based on the needs. Thank you so much once again. And if I can just very, very quickly, let's see. Move on to gallery view, and whoever it is that's still part of the session, we just want for you to just switch on your cameras very quickly so we can all say hello and goodbye, and thank you once again.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Lovely to meet you, Quinn, and Mona and Anisha. Thank you, Mona. Thank you, Devendra.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank
Good wishes.